Welcome back. You're watching Court TV. I'm Michael Ayala in today for Ted Rowlands. Turning now to Dedham, Massachusetts, where Brian Walshe has been sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for killing his missing wife. Now, Ana was last seen alive on New Year's Eve back in 2023, and prosecutors argued at trial that Brian killed her believing that she was having an affair, then dismembered and disposed of her body, which has never been found. Let's go now to Dedham, where we find Court TV crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson. And Matt, the judge called Walsh barbaric today in court. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was a big moment in court today. The judge not holding back as she called him barbaric for what he did to his wife, killing her, then dismembering her, dispersing of her remains. That statement made before she handed down that life sentence without the possibility of parole. Let's watch.
As to the nature and circumstances of count 3, the improper disposal of Ana Walsh's body, the seriousness of your acts cannot be overstated. Your acts in dismembering your wife's body and disposing of her remains in multiple area dumpsters can only be described as barbaric and incomprehensible. You had no regard for the lifelong mental harm that your criminal acts inflicted on your then 2-, 4-, and 6-year-old sons, not only in taking their mother, but also, as is specific to this charge, in never being able to properly grieve that loss, to say goodbye to their mom.
Very tense moment in court today. Look at this. New video into our newsroom. Brian Walsh, convicted killer, going to serve life behind bars without the possibility of parole. Shackles and handcuffs being let out. Extra deputies with him this time, not saying a word, just like he didn't give a statement in elocution or make any remarks in court before the sentencing today, addressing the court. Why did he kill his wife? What did he do with her remains? She can never have that proper burial that her family wants so dearly, Michael.
And Matt, we also saw Ana Walsh's sister on the stand. What stood out to you from her statement to the court?
Alexandra made the trip from Canada. That's the reason why this sentencing was postponed by an entire day, so that she could be here. And wow, it was just so powerful. You could hear a pin drop in the courtroom. She had a written statement. She walked up to the witness box, and then at one point in time, the judge, she got up from her seat at the bench and she walked over to the edge and leaned over so that she could see the tears welling up in this witness's eyes, Ana Walsh's sister, as the sister looked at that killer across the room and made this statement.
Ana was a mother, a daughter, a sister, and a friend. Her life was unfairly taken. We asked the court to consider the permanent, long-lasting impact this loss has had on our family. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share the full weight of this incomprehensible act. Ana will never be forgotten. We will carry her light and her memory with us forever.
Never forgotten, always in their hearts. All right, take a look at this. So as she exited the courthouse, the reporters were trying to ask her questions about facing her sister's killer. She wasn't answering those questions. We know that she made the statement to prosecutors that she believes that justice has been served. Outside the courthouse on the steps, she did answer one question. She said that she was here to honor her sister and be the voice for her sister, Ana. Michael?
Yeah, and kudos to the court for waiting that day so she could have that opportunity. And Matt, I understand you were able to catch up with Brian Walsh's mother. She was in court pretty much the entire trial. After today's hearing, did she have to say anything?
Yeah, par for the course, not answering my questions yet again. I ask her each and every day if she would like to make a statement. She's been in court for the 8 days of the trial, listening to those 48 witnesses that took the stand. She's been supporting her son, wearing a brooch that he gave her each and every day. One day she was trying to pass him a note. That was the beginning of the trial. And today the judge remarked about the letter that she submitted, a character letter in behalf of her son. And the judge said, I don't agree with this letter at all. She didn't read it out loud. But I asked Ana Walshe about that as she left court today. Take a listen. Mrs. Walsh, did you hire a private investigator to look after Ana after you visited a spiritual advisor? Do you still believe that your son is innocent? What was in the letter that you wrote, Mrs. Walsh? What was in that letter?
Anything you want to say about your grandsons?
Did you know that her body was in the home when you came to visit? What will happen with the children? Inside the courtroom, this convicted killer who killed his wife, dismembered her, and then tossed her remains like trash, according to prosecutors. When he left today, he didn't look in the direction of his mom, and he usually does each and every day. He usually glances over at her and says something to her. Today, he didn't look in her direction, and they had no moment, is what she tries to create each and every day. Now he's going to just see 4 walls for the rest of his life as he heads to prison, Michael.
Yeah, and Matt, he's already had some issues in jail a little earlier. We'll see how prison works out for him. All right, Matt, thank you so much for that report. Appreciate it. Live from Dedham, Massachusetts. Let's bring in our guest still with us, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Jack Rice. And Jack, you know, Mom was always this sort of shadowy figure in this case, in my mind. But, you know, the machine that is the criminal justice system sometimes can be a little harsh. But I got to say, as I mentioned, and I want to get your thoughts, kudos to the system for waiting that extra day to give the sister the opportunity to deliver that victim impact statement live and in court.
Yeah, no question, Michael. When we think about this system as a whole, I mean, we deal with tragedy every day, and we deal with it in countless numbers. It's not just once, it's hundreds of times over decades and decades and decades. And sometimes we can be flattened by what that means. The brutality of what that means in an individual or in a family's life, that's a reality. And sometimes that is what brings us back into the reality of what it means too. And you realize just how critically important a sentencing is. And in many ways, the most important part of the sentencing really are the voices that get to be heard, finally. They get to talk about the person that was stolen, the person that was taken, the brutality that was placed upon that person, and really to air out what this means for them, for their families, and most importantly, the memory of that person that they never get to hold ever again.
Now, based on that first-degree murder conviction by this jury, Jack, the court had no option. It was life without parole. But the rhetoric of the judge, I think, was pretty strong. You don't often hear judges call defendants barbaric. Love to get your thoughts on that.
Oh, no question about that. And remember, this is one of those aspects where you realize the humanity in the judge and the brutality of what this meant. And what you will sometimes see is the judge who was always trying to remain professional. But I also think there was something about this case that hit this judge personally. And if you listen to the sentencing as you just aired it, the notion of what he did by cutting her to pieces and then placing her in various parts of the city so she could never be found, what that does to a child, the ability to never be able to get true closure. For some reason, that piece, even over the murder itself, was something that this judge grabbed upon in a way that I thought was really startling. And at the same time, it makes us all remember we are all humans trying to work in a very imperfect world and in a very brutal system that deals with this kind of brutality every day.
Yeah, no question, Jack. And again, Brian Walsh sentenced to life in prison. As the judge said, your natural life. You will be in prison for your natural life.